Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. We've got to talk about Man United. I've got some things to say and I don't know if you're going to agree with them or not, but I'd love to put forward these questions and these thoughts and just get your thoughts in the comments down below. Obviously there's so much anger and sort of vitriol towards Man United and lots of different decisions and ideas on sort of why this has occurred. And when I start having these thoughts, I kind of go, okay, what is it? And I have a few questions and buzzwords. I always write my buzzwords down, don't I? And with these buzzwords, I've got gluttony, privilege, constraints, and I want to talk about Ronaldo at the end of this video as well. And as you can see, written on the board, gluttony. So, and also the fact that Man United can learn a lot from Arsenal. A lot from Arsenal. Well, they can learn a lot from Brighton. They can learn a lot from Brentford. And actually, these last two games, in terms of holding up a mirror on where Man United are, it says a hell of a lot. And I think there's actually the broader point of it for football is that there's real positives, really. I know Man United fans don't want to hear that, and we'll talk about why it's kind of gone so wrong. But the fact that Brighton and Brentford can beat this Man United side when I think I saw a stat on it yesterday, Man United 424 million, something like that, in terms of how much that squad's cost to put together. 55 million for Brentford, and they can pump them like that. Brighton can outthink and outplay them the way that they did the week before. And when I come to that word of gluttony, in terms of reasons why Man United are in the situation that they're in, I feel like gluttony is a huge part of it. Huge part of it, because gluttony leads to a lack of hunger. You know, it's quite clearly obviously the opposite, and you become lethargic when you're in that state, and that's the state that they've been in. And when we look at Arsenal are a few years ahead, but it was a similar sort of level of kind of gluttony and privilege in terms of, well, we're one of the best teams, that's how it works. And beautifully, that's not how it works in football. And as irate as you deserve to be as a Man United fan, in terms of the sort of the fact that this is a sport that can still, despite the differences in budget, create these kind of results if you don't apply yourself, if you don't show hunger and drive, if you don't have the right kind of system and structures in place, then that's a good thing. That is a good thing. Let's talk about this gluttony then, because I think that's where I kind of sit on Man United right now, is that they've just had it too easy. Now, I kind of had it in my own life at times. I worked at ITV, and I've worked in small places, and I've worked for myself. And this sort of innovation, creativity, and drive that comes when it's just you, but kind of the rewards are just for you, or you have more ownership over those rewards, that's when you kind of get every last inch out of yourselves. When you're in a bigger company and there is that space because there's, you have that privilege, that's when you take it easy. That's when you kind of leave it to someone else. And that's what's gone on here. The only way, and this happened for me when I worked in a big company, is that it then comes from the top. There has to be this sort of fear factor that you need to be all doing your job, because if you're not, you're out. That ruthlessness is not there at Man United. And so when, Gary Neville talks about the Glazers, one huge part of that is that they are not a driving force. You look at Arsenal, okay, Josh Kroenke now seems to be that, and for a while there wasn't that driving force. But you need to put the people in place who have a clear vision and put constraints on themselves. That's the other big word for me. So let's talk about constraints, because I think they kind of all intertwine a little bit, and they're all a big reason why, for me, Man United are in this utter mess. One thing I would also say is that people talking about rock bottom, guys, this is not rock bottom. Talk to older Man United fans in terms of getting relegated, like finishing 10th or 14th this season. If that were to occur, it's not that big a deal. So it's not rock bottom, and that is a positive. This is something that can be sort of solved pretty quickly. I wanted to sort of dive into, as I said, the constraints, the need for constraints to be brilliant. And I found this. So stick with me with this. This is why constraints are good for innovation. And this is something to keep in mind as well. If you're sort of a YouTuber or you're creative, having things that sort of block roads and then lead you down other roads are things that are really important, because it allows you to move forward to a better product at the end of it. And it helps you to sort of sharpen the pencil of whatever you're creating, if you know what I mean. That's what Man United haven't done. Let me read it. So basically, the suggestion here is that new research challenges this wisdom that you need to sort of take away constraints to create creativity and innovative thinking. They reviewed 145 empirical studies on the effects of constraints on creativity and innovation and found that individuals, teams, and organizations alike benefit from a healthy dose of constraints. It's only when the constraints become too high that they stifle creativity and innovation. So that's the first thing I would say, is that in terms of constraints becoming too high, that's not a problem for Man United. In comparison to the Brightons, the Brentfords, the QPRs of this world, this is, a commercially humongous club that will generate money forever. And at Arsenal, they have spent a hell of a lot of money, so they were able to get themselves out of that hole. So in terms of the constraints becoming too high, that's not a problem for them, right? So here's a simple illustration of the principle. And so these GE engineers, they were asked to develop an ECG that boasts the latest technology that costs no more than $1 per scan. It's ultra portable to reach rural communities and fit in a backpack and battery operated. So the engineers were given just 18 months and a budget of $500,000. So let's put Brentford into that scenario. Brentford get, they'll have a transfer window and they'll have a certain amount, which is a modest budget. And they need to find a way to be creative, to get what they need to move forward. And in this scenario, a very modest budget, the GE standard given to them, that development of its predecessor cost $5.4 million. So you see the difference. Research suggests that the GE engineers were not successful despite these constraints, but because of them. Constraints can foster innovation when they represent a motivating challenge and focus. This is an important one for me when it comes to Man United. Focus efforts on a more narrowly defined way forward. This is what is so confusing, because this feels so obvious, doesn't it? This is the bit that I think is just really sort of highlights the alarm bells when we think of the transfer market for Man United, because this is how you solve it. The players aren't good enough. This is a well-known thing, right? And again, Man United can learn so much from what Arsenal have done in the last 2 years. Arsenal have had to take a lot of heat, but they've gone backwards to go forwards, and they have cleared out that squad and then brought in players with very clear profiles. And now you look at that team and it complements each other. They have players that are necessary and needed in different positions. You have a Tierney that can bomb on. You have a Tomiyasu that can tuck in. You have an Odegaard that is happy to go over to that right-hand side, play in those pockets of space so that Saka can get on. You've got Martinelli, who's got that pace to sort of cut in. You've got Gabriel Jesus, who will stretch the play but also come short. Profiles. But this is Man United. When there are no constraints on the creative process, complacency sets in. And people follow what psychologists call the path of least resistance. They go for the most intuitive idea that comes to mind rather than investing in the development of better ideas. Constraints, in contrast, provide focus and creative challenge that motivates people to search for and connect information from different sources to generate novel ideas for new products, services, business. So you have to embrace them. And look, even Arsenal's even in the word. Therefore, managers can embrace and use a variety of constraints in their arsenal. Really great. So, and I'll keep going just because this is so interesting. These constraints take three main forms. First, they can limit inputs, human capital, funds. So that's something that Man United can do, but they can have a high bar so they can get around it. Second, they can enforce specific processes, examples including procedures on seeking early market and technological feedback. So early market, that might be something where, let's look at Liverpool. Liverpool look to do their business early. And with that confinement and constraint, they need to be smart. They need to make moves quickly, early. They need to find someone who maybe is potential. And third, they can set specific output requirements such as product or service specifications. So I guess that doesn't work as much. But this is my point. Man United, gluttonous, so much money, they will go, okay, well, we'll have him. And it just, again, time and again hasn't worked. They've gone away from the key elements, which is to have that hunger. That hunger has often come from the youngsters. Yes, they still integrate the youngsters, but there was also, you would go and buy the best player in the league in terms of Roy Keane. And actually, maybe that was gluttonous in itself. It's an easy approach. So with the way that the world is now, and in particular the money that is in the Premier League, Man United have to be so much smarter. And it feels so odd to everyone. The fact that you're getting to a point where, okay, we'll scrabble around, we'll get Arnautovic then. And even if you want to go and get Arnautovic, so Brentford could go and get Arnautovic for a similar reason that was within the constraints that they understand, which is we're going to go for players that people don't really want to go for. You like the sort of Damsgaard because he's got problems with arthritis. The likes of Eriksen because of his heart problem. That's a new niche and constraint that Brentford are having because they have a myriad of constraints, but they still need that stardust. They need that quality in that team alongside the players that have the physicality to dominate and bully opponents to get themselves points, as well as having players who have the hunger and desire to do it. So for Man United, they have to find a way to enforce hunger in the squad, enforce hunger in the whole operation of the club. And I don't know how they do that. It will come down to a few men because it's not going to be the Glazers. It doesn't seem like that will be the case because they've just been, as a club, been gently rocking for a long time. They need to have a better understanding of creativity. It's not, and this idea that everyone goes, well, this is Man United. It doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter because there's so much money in the Premier League. It's now getting to a point where people go, I don't want to go near that club. And that is a very, very scary place. Now, there might be an area where, okay, for the first few, to get the wheels moving, we might have to pay over the odds. But if we are going to pay over the odds, we have to be so certain that these are players that are going to be around for the next 4, 5, 6 years minimum and have a high ceiling and will become great players in a system of play that has constraints. This is something that Ralf Rangnick said as well, and it's so bloody obvious. And what you are seeing, I feel like I'm seeing it, is that Ten Hag still wants to play the way that he wants to play. You also have to have an element of awareness if you don't have the players that you have to play a little bit differently. The fact that Eriksen's played 2 positions so far is not ideal, right? But the starting point, which Ralf Rangnick said, is the headline is how do you want to play? And this is why it should have been so clear, if Erik ten Hag was going to be the man, that this is how we're going to want to play. And you saw it with some of the goals yesterday, and we'll get into that in the fallout tomorrow. But the way that they want to play, sometimes you will have those growing pains. But if there's that transparency within that, you then start to look like a club that has more conviction, more understanding. And at that final word of conviction, of course, there are so many players that aren't good enough, right? And Ten Hag needs to be able to develop them. But also, again, looking at Arsenal have, and Arteta talks about it in All or Nothing, he talks about how you need to know what you're going to do before you get the ball. You need to not even think about it. You need to be able to be Xhaka in that little pocket on the left-hand side and go, okay, I'm surrounded here. I'm going to pop forwards and then I'm going to ping it over to Xhaka because I know he's there. Man United don't have that because they change players and personnel and formation time and time again. So they need to find conviction. Final point with the conviction thing is get rid of the Ronaldo thing. This is part of it as well. This is path of least resistance. This is, well, he's all right, isn't he? He's probably one of our best players. No. If it was me, you have to start to put in place a culture like at Man City where you go, okay, well, look, if we have to move players on, we have to move players on. And don't go on about Man City and the money. Man United have got the money and they've spent the money. I mean, they're running out of money now, but you know my point on that. These are huge clubs. You can't use that as an excuse when it comes to Man United, in my opinion. Liverpool, the culture of hunger, that is there. Arsenal, you're starting to see it. Tottenham, the ruthlessness, clear structure, and understanding that if you are not up to it, if you are not switched on, if you're not giving absolutely everything, you are gone. That is something that Man United could have easily exercised in this summer transfer window, and then the expectations of the whole club goes whoop, and you go as a group of fans, you go, I can see what you're doing, I get it. Ronaldo wants to go. The club's success is not going to be defined by a 37-year-old. Don't care who he is. Let him go. Yes, you're going to lose money. I get it. But you have to think of the bigger picture. I go back to Arsenal. Aubameyang. You cut them adrift. They are out. And they are now missing the opportunity of going back to go forward. If they do not get De Jong, if they do, they have to go and get De Jong, regardless of how much it costs. If that guy goes to Chelsea instead, you will be in a complete state of limbo again until January. And you can't fix things in January, really. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I think that was the big thing for me, is the gluttony, the privilege, the lack of constraints. Let me know what you think. If you disagree, totally understand it. What is the big problem at Man United, and how does it get fixed in the last few weeks of the transfer window? Is it about losing players as much as gaining players? Let me know in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts on the Ronaldo situation as well, because for me, this feels really cut and dry, and as a club, you go, well, if you don't want to be here, go. Because this is Man United. If you're new to this channel, enjoyed this one, hit the subscribe button. We're 5,000 subscribers away from 200k. So if you don't, you need to hurry up, basically, if you want to be in the top 200k subscribers. So hit that button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you soon.